Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. The feel-good story of the weekend, without a shadow of a doubt, will be David Price walking away from Wembley Stadium, head held high with a victory under his belt over touted Russian prospect Sergey Kuzmin. But is that realistic? Is that going to happen? Many would say no. But David Price, he thinks it's achievable. He's exuding confidence. He appears relatively relaxed, and pretty relaxed considering what's on the line. This could be his last foray on the big stage if he loses. He's 35, and if he loses to an upcoming prospect, well, his days as a sort of big-time fighter, or getting these opportunities on big-time cards, they may be limited, they may be numbered. So what I'll do, I'll get to the weigh-in highlights first, followed by their final press conference comments. There's a bit to get through there, and then on to some thoughts.
I'm here to prove myself and to prove to everyone what I can do. Of course, David Price is a prize winner of the Olympics in 2008, but I have gone through very hard and tedious training, and I will demonstrate all that I've achieved during this training on Saturday night. I know that the fans will support David, but I also came here not to, just to slack off, and everybody will see what I can do.
I think my stock went up after that fight in Cardiff, and my confidence went through the roof, believe it or not. Even though I lost the fight, I knew I could compete at that level. The doubt I had going into the Povetkin fight was, do I belong in the ring with someone like Alexander Povetkin? I proved I did, because I had him out on his feet in the 4th round. Sergey Kuzmin is another good fighter. I'm ready to go in there and meet him head on. There's going to be fireworks, like you said. It's excitement guaranteed every time I fight. He's never going to be in it like that, the way I'm going to hit him. I know he's had a good training camp. He's coming to win. I'm coming to win. This is potentially fight of the night, so people don't want to blink. 1,000,000%. I can't lose. It's potentially life-changing. You know, when I got offered the fight, yeah, it's short notice, and I was training for another fight in 2 weeks. Ideally, things would have been better, but the upside of winning this fight, it's life-changing. So I'm going to be going in there. I'm going to have to walk through him and do whatever it takes to win, and it's as simple as that.
Okay, so starting with the weights. So David Price first, 265 pounds. He actually looked in decent nick, not tremendous shape, but he looked in pretty good condition overall. And that weight, 265 pounds, it's a little heavy for me. It's actually 9 pounds heavier than he was against Alexander Povetkin. And he was 256, and that's probably a better weight for David Price, but he actually looked in decent shape at 265, and he is 6'8" after all. But we'll have to see what sort of impact that extra weight will have in the fight. As we know, David Price, car crash TV, he can start well, he can be landing his own work and looking good, but then all of a sudden he can wilt and he can go down, and having this extra weight, you'd have to ask yourself, is this going to help him later on, especially if he starts to tire? It's just going to be a millstone round his neck. So a little concerned that he's come in heavier, almost 10 pounds heavier for this fight. But overall, he does look in decent condition. And maybe he's thinking, well, Kuzmin, I'm just going to go for it. He said don't blink because you might miss the action. So I think the game plan for David Price is, go in there, assert himself, really throw the kitchen sink and see what can happen. And I guess against someone like Sergey Kuzmin, who is actually a very good fighter, maybe that is his best strategy. Would we rather see David Price go in there and basically sort of sit behind the jab, pouring it out there, because he doesn't use it as a ramrod? Do we want to see him pouring it out there and just sort of over time getting broken down and then stopped? And that may happen anyway. So it sounds like from what he's saying from the press conference and in other sort of interviews that he's done, that he is going to go for broke. And who can blame him? And in the build-up, David Price, he sparred at Nathan Gorman. And Ricky Hatton, Gorman's trainer, and obviously he's close to Price as well, says Nathan has done 6 rounds with David Price, and it was brilliant. It was good to see Pricey looking so good. He's had a few defeats along the way, but as I said to him, the best inspiration he can use for those defeats is to look at our Frank Bruno. David has got such massive ability, massive punching power. You can't tell me he's not capable of knocking out any heavyweight out there. He's had a bit of a bad run, but he can't lose that faith. Some very good comments there from Ricky Hatton, and it's true, David Price, he's one of the hardest punchers in the division, but he's also got one of the flimsiest chins. He doesn't seem to hold up well under pressure. Sometimes he just seems to fall apart, and it can happen from just, all of a sudden. It's 1 second to the next. You never know what's going to happen in a David Price fight. Those Tony Thompson fights, the Erkan Tepper fight, the Christian Hammer fight. He put Hammer down in that fight, and then all of a sudden he wilted, was it the next round? And obviously against Povetkin, he was down, but then he had some success, sent Povetkin across the ring. And that Povetkin fight, from what Price had said in the earlier comments from the press conference, it's given him a lot of confidence. And I don't think it's ever been a case of people have doubted David Price's ability in terms of punching power especially. But clearly, he's got a few frailties, defense being one of them, his chin being another. But also, there's a mental aspect, a mental element. A lot of fans do really have a question mark about Price because, like I said, he can just wilt and it happens all of a sudden. He just can't seem to keep it up. Something happens in there and he loses heart. All of a sudden his body betrays him and it's all over. And we don't want to see one of those performances. And to his credit, we didn't see that against Povetkin. He was caught with a right hand and he was stunned, and Povetkin followed up and obviously landed a tremendous left hook which put him out for the count. Stretched him out and it was all over. But Price, he is saying he's drawing on that. He's getting confidence from that. And the reality is, we don't know how good Sergey Kuzmin is. Povetkin, much of a known quantity, whereas Kuzmin, he's on the way up. He had a very good amateur pedigree. And here's a little clip of him dealing to Joe Joyce about 5 years ago. But in terms of his pro career, he's been doing what most prospects do. He's been fighting guys he should be beating, and he's been doing it relatively well. But he's been fighting in relative obscurity, and he hasn't really sort of set the world alight. But this fight, in this venue, on this stage, it can certainly put Kuzmin on the map. In terms of his weight, so 244 pounds. Actually, that's not a bad weight for Kuzmin. And it's not so much the weight with Kuzmin here, because here's a photo from his last fight. This is after his last fight. Look how fleshy he looks there. He is clearly now in better condition. And would you believe he was 247 pounds for that fight? And he's 244 pounds for this fight. So he's clearly been in the gym, grinding hard, working hard. And some of this footage running here in the background from the open workout, when I saw him in the open workout, I thought he actually looks like he's cutting a leaner figure. He looks more athletic, he looks sharper, he looks faster. Overall, he just looked better. So I was expecting he would come in a little bit lighter in terms of the weigh-in. I wasn't really sure how much, but physically, just to the eye, I thought, well, he looks in much better condition. He's clearly been putting the work in the gym. He's been living the life, whereas the knock on him before, and I'd mentioned it in the announcement video for the Price-Kuzmin fight, is he doesn't seem to look the part. He's a bit fleshy, and sure, he still is a little bit fleshy, but he's in far better condition now, and that's going to bode well for his chances, not just for this fight, but in the heavyweight division in general. There's, a lot of good fights out there, and if you're carrying extra rubble, you're not quite in the shape you should be, that's going to hurt your chances. And like I said with David Price, carrying that extra 10 pounds that he is, weighing in at 265, is that going to actually help Price? Arguably, no, but we just don't know. I mean, maybe there's a bit more muscle there, but he does look a touch heavier than he did than the Povetkin fight in terms of aesthetically. But Kuzmin is the reverse. He is looking much better than he has in his pro career so far. Very good sign for Kuzmin. And in terms of the fight, well, I'm expecting this one potentially to be over quickly. And I do think that Kuzmin is going to win. I would really like to see David Price win, though. He said, don't blink. It could be the fight of the night. And he could well be right. Any David Price fight, it's never short of action. It's never short of drama. You just don't know what's going to happen from one second to the next. But I would really like to see David Price come away with a win here. But I just don't see it happening. I think Kuzmin, he's got a decent chin himself, very good amateur pedigree. He's been doing well in the pro ranks so far. But then again, I mean, he is still a little unproven at the top level. Whereas David Price, obviously, he's been all over the place and his career hasn't quite panned out the way many thought it would. But David Price, he's never going to be not in this fight just because he's such a massive puncher. We saw that against Povetkin, sent him across the ring. And Price, he's obviously sort of imagining that as he said he had Povetkin out on his feet in the 4th round. I'm not sure Povetkin was actually really out on his feet. He was certainly knocked across the ring. I think some of it was a balance issue, but he didn't look terribly hurt from that. Sure, he took a big shot and he was hurt to some extent, but he didn't look in la-la land. But clearly Price is drawing from that. But Kuzmin, I'm expecting at some point he is going to clip David Price, and David Price is not going to react very well, and Kuzmin will get him out of there. But I'm looking forward to this one. And David Price, he's obviously been a bit of a nearly man in the division. It would be great to see him win. It would be great to see him do something in the sport of boxing to leave a legacy. Because if he gets past Kuzmin, he will get another big fight. He'll get another big payday. He'll get another opportunity to redeem himself at the top level. And this fight, it's a good opportunity. Kuzmin, he's dangerous, but I don't think people would see him at the same level as Povetkin right now. Maybe he is, but he just hasn't, obviously had that exposure. He hasn't got that resume, the breadth of experience and his career. But, we'll have to see. But I'm favouring Kuzmin to start David Price, potentially in the first 6 rounds, but who knows? It's a David Price fight. Anything can and does happen. What do you make of it all? Drop a comment loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.